How have you cheated death? Before we start with the first story, please hit a subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Story 1. When I was still a fetus, my mother suffered a heavy injury to her stomach, causing the death of my twin, but I survived somehow. The doctors basically told her she must stay bedridden for the rest of the pregnancy, or else she would lose me too. So my grandma got her a SNES, and she just played video games all day. I still have that SNES. Story 2. I had a screening for something else, and my doctor found very early stage cancer at age 34. It was removed painlessly and completely in an afternoon. It's a cancer that usually affects people over 60 and doesn't have symptoms until it's too late. If I didn't have this other screening, I likely would have died a painful death from it in 10-ish years. When the doctor first called to give me the results, he said it was divine intervention, and never gave me the results of the test I came in for. Story 3. I got in an accident with a drunk driver. Everyone that saw the car afterwards said the same thing. How are you alive? The roof where I was sitting was damn near touching the seat. I couldn't have fit back in there if I tried. I got pretty f***ed up, for sure. But thankfully I didn't die. Story 4. Don't know if I can say I cheated death as much as had an amazing medical team that knew what they were doing. But when I was 19, I was diagnosed with stage 3 lymphoma. It was on my stomach and ulcers that equaled up to 5 pounds worth of tumors. Was told on Tuesday when they were trying to figure out what specific type I had so they could know how to treat it, that if I didn't start a treatment plan by Friday, it would be too far gone to save me. Cut to Friday morning and they basically flipped a coin and went with Burkitt's lymphoma. Luckily they were right because it has been nearly 20 years since my last round of chemo and I'm still cancer-free. Had they been wrong, I wouldn't be here typing this. Story 5. Congenital heart defect, WPW, completely unknown until 35 years old. I was playing board games with a small group. Vision narrowed until I came to looking up at EMTs. They had taken turns doing CPR for 14 minutes until medical arrived and shocked me 3 times to bring me back. 1 surgery and defib install later, and everything is pretty much normal with a cheap med. Had I been driving or at home alone, that would have been it. Those 4 guys don't pay for beers ever when we go out. Story 6. Was in a brutal car accident. My son was 5 at the time in the back seat. Our vehicle was hit 3 times like a ping pong ball during rush hour, pushed over 3 lanes into oncoming traffic. When we finally stopped, we had narrowly evaded being sandwiched between 2 transport trucks. My right arm was crushed and is now all titanium, but otherwise we made it out alive. My son without a scratch thanks to a properly installed car seat. Hours later, I went into another portal, hopped up on a cocktail of ketamine, morphine, etc. I am convinced I entered the edge of life, death, as it was a surreal experience. Story 7. I was hit by a drunk driver while I was riding my bike at 13. If I hadn't been wearing my helmet, I would have died. The helmet was cracked all the way through on the back. Safety equipment has never been a joke to me since, and all any of my nieces or nephews need to do is call me saying they need a new helmet, and they'll have one. Story 8. My bio-father punched my mom in the stomach 9 weeks before I was due. A few days later, she was feeling just a little off and called her doctor, who told her to go to the hospital. It turns out the placenta had ruptured, and the surgeon said we both would have died that day had she just decided to sleep it off instead. 1 very emergency C-section later, and we both made it, if not a little undercooked. Story 9. I, uncowlingly, had a UT. Never really had one before, but I was always told the symptoms were things like dark urine, pissing blood, being itchy. I had none of them. I was trying to tough guy it out, but I had pain in my stomach for at least 5 days, and I decided to go to urgent care because I couldn't eat or walk anymore. They thought my appendix had f***ing blown, so they sent me to the ER, but it was a UTABT, approximately 24 HRS away from going septic and infecting other organs. I felt pretty f***ing stupid, but at the same time I had no symptoms other than pain. Scary. Story 10. Congenital heart failure. I was a competitive swimmer growing up and misdiagnosed by many doctors for many years. I was 2 months away from my mitral valve completely closing and suffering from complete heart failure by age 9. Luckily, A cardiologist found it after a last-ditch effort to try to figure out what was going on and passing out in my last pool. Scheduled for a rush surgery, had mitral valve replaced, am alive. Thankful for cardiologists. Get your heart checked. Story 11. Not sure if this counts, but many years ago I was riding home from our local dirt jumps on my BMX. Behind my house is a quarry which has a really rocky bridleway running down the hill. This is the route I would usually take to get home from the jumps. Anyway, I was heading home while the sun was setting and was absolutely blasting it down this rocky path. I jumped off of one of the rocks, and while I was in the air, I watched my front wheel drop out from my forks, and before I knew it, they had pummeled straight into the ground, sending me straight over the handlebars. I flew a good 20-30 feet and landed on a big rock, right on my spine. I wasn't wearing a helmet at the time, but fortunately I was wearing my backpack, which cushioned my landing. I walked away in shock, but completely unscathed apart from a small graze on my knuckles. I've never felt so lucky to be wearing a backpack in my life. Without it, I'd certainly have been paralyzed or worse. Story 12. During 2002, on the day my mother went into labor and went to the nearest Guft Medical College. Now, Guft Medical College means free treatment, but it also means the worst patient care there is. Dirty lobbies, dirty beds, inhuman toilets. Nurses treat you like animals, etc., etc. Anyway, my mom went into labor and she was admitted shortly afterwards. She had her checkup and ultrasound. There was another woman in her ward who also went into labor that day, and that woman's child didn't make it. She gave birth to a deceased baby. Anyway, the stupid f***ing nurses, and I know you all have huge respect for nurses, but I can't help it, then told my family that my mom has a dead baby inside her and they need to remove it. My dad was asked to buy an injection required for the process. That injection would have killed me. When my grandma arrives at the hospital and she got told that I died, she lost it. She started screaming and saying how even the last night when she was applying oil on my mom's belly, I was kicking and was healthy. Mind you, this is a woman who has given birth to 8 kids, of whom only 3 are alive. She knows what she is talking about. Even then, those nurses were physically fighting her and won't let her into the ward. She fought her way in and went to my mom, who was oblivious to all this and could still feel me kicking, and demanded that the doctor comes and sees her immediately. After that, I was born, at the exact stroke of midnight, not making this up. I was literally born at exactly 12 a.m. This is the gist of how I cheated death. Oh, see, there's more to this tale of hell, like mom bleeding for hours after I was born, and not even being given some water to drink, etc. Story 13. We were holidaying in the Lake District. I was only very young. I was on the top of a grassy hill and thought it'd be great to run down it really fast. My dumb ass didn't understand momentum, and I could not stop. I was running and running and running. I saw a little wire fence with old wooden posts, and boom, some guy leaped on me and bear hugged me, and we stopped. My parents, utterly panicked, caught up and came rushing to me. My parents lost their shit, and I was just in like shock. Came very, very close to tumbling over a high cliff and turning into strawberry jam. Thank you, stranger, whoever and wherever the hell you are. Story 14. I was on a mountain trail in South Dakota. I'm not sure if we took a wrong turn or the trail just ended, but along a mountainside a rope just ended, and the next bit was very sloped and covered in fine gravel. 12-year-old me clambered across, but barely, and my parents asked me to come back. Only later did I realize that the drop was many tens of feet, and a slip was very likely. This is not a climactic or crazy story, but the slow, creeping reality of death haunts me whenever I think of it. Story 15. I was riding a motorbike at 60 miles per hour, national speed limit road. An oncoming car overtook a car on a blind bend and forced me off the road. The moment my bike hit the grass, I decided to jump off it as I was heading for a stone wall and knew that I would never be able to get control of the bike once it was off a tarmac road. The bike pummeled into the wall, and I hit the floor with force. My leathers and helmet saved me from a much worse fate, but I think if I'd have hit the oncoming car or the wall, I'd have been dead instantly. I was on my way to stay with friends and my aerosol deodorant exploded in my rucksack, and my visor completely detached from my helmet. Alright folks, that's a wrap. If you like more of this, please hit a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your thoughts in the comment below. I'll see you in the next video.